Three. Three. The table of contents. In relativity to the essential organon, page 8. In relativity to the formal organon, page 52. The gateway and the guidance, page 89. What you are, page 140. What you are continued, page 200. What you are continued to, page 239. To be in complete and total awe at this, page 459. What you are continued 3, page 471. In relativity to the journey up north, page 561. Cast away, page 569. Cast away, continued, page 624. Father Odin's preaching, page 641. The Heaven, page 675. Odin 1, page 757. Odin 2, page 763. Odin 3, page 766. Odin 4, page 774. Page 770. Odin 5, page 771. Odin 6, page 772. Odin 7, page 776. In relativity to the essential organon, 12 to 20 to 12. Extermination of the infinite. He is the law, religion, sanctifying principle, that of which you hate it. I am his own, his right-hand progeny, the star emulation, primary representation, subsequent wrath, the absolute coldest to winter exterminate. Her, oasis, temporal, cleanser, clever, listener, notable, to inevitable providence, divine, scourge ruinous thine castigate blood drinkers, provider, nourish him upon his descent. He ascends, dismissal of thine bosom. She has gone to darkness. Now blood water, unholy once, life poisonous, thou that drinketh with the most vicious insatiable lust, immutable transmutation, thy sin, see it, my sword is drawn, Father, bless me. I smite thee thus into another body, he falls into the pit, liver repulsed, rotten, dead, disgraced, unpardonable lust, inexcusable state, the beast that thou art, total condemnation, castigate be gone, get thus thee behind thee, extermination of the infinite, my inveritable hatred, divide all from none. My son does this in remembrance of thee, the necessity of the final cause. Darkness is cast, expel him. Mine magic prayer sent to heaven. He is I am him. Never questioned, never scourged. I make thee thus into the whitest form, universal opposition slain at last. Never again will they doubt him. Never again do they doubt him. He is the law, religion, sanctifying principle. December 2, 20 to 12. 12, 11, 20 to 12. Note, simple. I know a man who lost his parents at a young age. He was man enough to love a strong woman, years older than him, worked for her and made her stronger, opened his heart to her, shared his fears to no one but her. He was romantic and was faithful to her till her last breath, clinged after himself and sewed his own clothes. He was good-looking, courageous, and fearless. He never judged anyone on their past or looks. He was moderate, open-minded, and tolerant. His neighbor was Jewish, and his cousin-in-law was a Christian priest. Beaten and exiled when he was helpless, he was merciful when he became stronger. Intelligent, wise intelligent, wise, and a hard worker. He built a long-lasting nation out of nothing in the last 20 years of his life. He had no parents, but loved his daughters and grandchildren. His last will was be good to woman. This man was a mercy for all mankind. This is the Prophet Muhammad. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Peace be upon him. December 11, 20 to 12. 12, 13, 20 to 12. The essential organon. The logic is 4 categories. Each category is predicated with 32 attributes. Thus the 4 categories altogether total 128 attributes. This is to be better understood having read below. 128 is a complete number of total logic. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 3 and 4 are the essential sum of the final integer 8 in the number 128. In the number 128. In the number 128. Thus the 3-digit number 128 is permissible to alter into 4 numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is another permissible logical number by means of the above mentioned 1, 2, 3, and 4. The first category is the primary category. The second category is the secondary category. The third category is the tertiary category. The fourth category is the quaternary category. The 4 categories are applicable and derivative of each and every attribute of total logic. The categories are to be referred to and better understood by terming the predicated attributes. The purpose of this science is to decrease excessive virtue, activity, reason, sentiment, in order to know logic, in order to comprehend truth, in order to see right. The 4 categories are also a moral system. The first category predicates of the primary term formal cause. The second category predicates of the primary term material cause. The third category predicates of the primary term efficient cause. The fourth category predicates of the primary term final cause. The formal cause and the material cause are male. The efficient cause and the final cause are female. The formal cause and the material cause are light. The efficient cause and the final cause are darkness. The formal cause and the efficient cause both together are female. The material cause and the final cause both together are male. The formal cause and the final cause both together are female. The formal cause and the final cause both together are male. The material cause itself is male. The efficient cause itself is female. There exist 4 categories of logic. There exist 4 orders. There exist 4 elements. There exist 4 numbers. There exist 4 cornerstones. The formal cause is predicated of the primary category. The primary term attributed to the formal cause is antecedent. The material cause is predicated of the secondary category. The primary term attributed to the material cause is precedent. The efficient cause is predicated of the tertiary category. The primary term attributed to the efficient cause is subsequent. The final cause is predicated of the quaternary category. The primary term attributed to the final cause is consequent. The primary term attributed to antecedent is generation. The primary term attributed to precedent is physique. The primary term attributed to subsequent is intellect. The primary term attributed to consequent is identity. The primary term attributed to generation is spatiality. The primary term attributed to physique is causation. The primary term attributed to intellect is temporality. The primary term attributed to identity is resolution. The primary term attributed to spatiality is elemental and fundamental. The primary term attributed to causation is absolute and law. The primary term attributed to temporality is essential and movable. The primary term attributed to resolution is ultimate and complete. The primary term attributed to elemental and fundamental is human. The primary term attributed to absolute and law is animal. The primary term attributed to essential and movable is plant. The primary term attributed to ultimate and complete is mineral. The primary term attributed to human is lordship idealism. The primary term attributed to animal is lordship realism. The primary term attributed to plant is bondage idealism. The primary term attributed to mineral is bondage realism. The primary term attributed to lordship idealism is religion. The primary term attributed to lordship realism is state. The primary term attributed to bondage idealism is house. The primary term attributed to bondage realism is another. The primary term attributed to religion is Islam. The primary term attributed to state is Judaism. The primary term attributed to house is Christianity. The primary term attributed to another is idolatry. The primary term attributed to Islam is imagination. The primary term attributed to Judaism is sense. The primary term attributed to Christianity is contemplation. The primary term attributed to idolatry is nature. The primary term attributed to imagination is clarity. The primary term attributed to sense is evidence. The primary term attributed to contemplation is feeling. The primary term attributed to nature is notability. The primary term attributed to clarity is rising sight. The primary term attributed to evidence is falling sight. The primary term attributed to feeling is opening touch. The primary term attributed to notability is closing touch. The primary term attributed to rising sight is risen. The primary term attributed to falling sight is fallen. The primary term attributed to opening touch is opened. The primary term attributed to closing touch is closed. The primary term attributed to risen is soar. The primary term attributed to fallen is hover. The primary term attributed to opened is fall. The primary term attributed to closed is rest. The primary term attributed to soar is affirmative sensibility. The primary term attributed to hover is affirmative irritability and affirmative reproductivity. The primary term attributed to fall is negative reproductivity and negative irritability. The primary term attributed to rest is negative sensibility. The primary term attributed to affirmative sensibility is animus. The primary term attributed to affirmative irritability and affirmative reproductivity is persona. The primary term attributed to negative reproductivity and negative irritability is anima. The primary term attributed to negative sensibility is shadow. The primary term attributed to animus is father. The primary term attributed to persona is son. The primary term attributed to anima is mother. The primary term attributed to shadow is daughter. The primary term attributed to father is north. The primary term attributed to son is east. The primary term attributed to mother is west. The primary term attributed to daughter is south. The primary term attributed to north is air. The primary term attributed to east is fire. The primary term attributed to west is water. The primary term attributed to south is earth. Note that male human is attributed to air, fire, X, and X. The female human is attributed to air, water, X, and X. The male animal is attributed to fire, X, and X. The female animal is attributed to fire, water, X, and X. The male plant is attributed to water, fire. The male plant is attributed to water, fire, X, and X. The female plant is attributed to water, X, and X. The male mineral is attributed to earth, fire, X, and X. The female mineral is attributed to earth, water, X, and X. The primary term attributed to air is spring. The primary term attributed to fire is summer. The primary term attributed to water is autumn. The primary term attributed to earth is winter. The primary term attributed to spring is warmth. The primary term attributed to summer is heat. The primary term attributed to autumn is coolness. The primary term attributed to winter is coldness. The primary term attributed to warmth is morning. The primary term attributed to heat is afternoon. The primary term attributed to coolness is evening. The primary term attributed to coldness is night. The primary term attributed to morning is satya. The primary term attributed to afternoon is treta. The primary term attributed to evening is dvapara. The primary term attributed to night is Kali. The primary term attributed to Satya is Jupiter. The primary term attributed to Treta is Mars and Sun. The primary term attributed to Dvapara is Saturn and Moon. The primary term attributed to Kali is Earth. The primary term attributed to Jupiter is knowledge. The primary term attributed to Mars and Sun is justice. The primary term attributed to Saturn and Moon is virtue. The primary term attributed to Earth is kingdom. The primary term attributed to knowledge is consciousness. The primary term attributed to justice is irefulness and cheerfulness. The primary term attributed to virtue is tearfulness and fearfulness. The primary term attributed to kingdom is self-consciousness. The primary term attributed to consciousness is antecedent daylight. The primary term attributed to irefulness and cheerfulness is precedent daylight. The primary term attributed to tearfulness and fearfulness is subsequent twilight. The primary term attributed to self-consciousness is consequent twilight. The primary term attributed to antecedent daylight is whiteness. The primary term attributed to precedent daylight is yellowness. The primary term attributed to subsequent twilight is blackness. The primary term attributed to consequent twilight is brownness. The primary term attributed to whiteness is white. The primary term attributed to yellowness is yellow. The primary term attributed to blackness is black. The primary term attributed to brownness is brown. Note in notable systematic order, the white human is attributed to the Arab, the Semite, the Latin and the Slav and the Teuton, and the Hindu Aryan. In notable systematic order, the yellow human is attributed to the Mongoloid, the Chinese and the Japanese, the Burmese and the Polynesian. In notable systematic order, the black human is attributed to the Congolese, the Kemetic, the Zulu, and the Ethiopian. In notable systematic order, the brown human is attributed to the Inuit, to the Incan and the Aztecan, to the Cherokee, and to the Amazonian. The notable accident is attributed to the Oceanic Islander, the Atlantean Islander, X and X. Pending total completion of the following attributes of each of the 4 white human, the 4 yellow human, the 4 black human, and the 4 brown human terminologies. Only for now, in a notable systematic order, the white, Latin, and the Slav and the Teuton human is attributed to the Hermes and Aphrodite, Mars and Venus, Virgin Mary and Jesus Christus, and Tarzan and Sophia. The primary term attributed to white is salt. The primary term attributed to yellow is sulfur. The primary term attributed to black is mercury. The primary term attributed to brown is earth. The primary term attributed to salt is scalp. The primary term attributed to sulfur is extremity. The primary term attributed to mercury is torso. The primary term attributed to earth is foot. The primary term attributed to scalp is gemini. The primary term attributed to extremity is Arius. The primary term attributed to torso is Cancer. The primary term attributed to foot is Taurus. The primary term attributed to Gemini is air. The primary term attributed to Arius is fire. The primary term attributed to Cancer is water. The primary term attributed to Taurus is earth. The primary term attributed to air is formal cause. The primary term attributed to fire is material cause. The primary term attributed to water is efficient cause. The primary term attributed to earth is final cause. The primary term attributed to formal cause is north. The primary term attributed to material cause is east. The primary term attributed to efficient cause is west. The primary term attributed to final cause is south. The primary term attributed to north is father. The primary term attributed to east is son. The primary term attributed to west is mother. The primary term attributed to south is daughter. The father is risen. The son is fallen. The mother is opened. The daughter is closed. December 13, 2012. (12/14/2012). The life and death of a Mr. Goulet. The life and death of a Mr. Goulet. His essential reiteration of what he saw of my generation, my physique, my intellect, my identity, prior to and up to December 2012, in notable systematic order. Films 1 and 2, Childhood Generation, up to 1996. Film 3, Causation of Persona. Film 4, Efficient Causation of Persona. Film 5, Into the Gullet of Madness. Film 6, Defense of Intellect, Excessive Phallus Imagination. Film 7, Fantasies of Lost Day, 2000 to 2002. Film 8, False Oversized Persona infuses itself together with art, music. Films 9 and 10, Reiteration of Now Fallen Defensive Father Archetype. Films 11 and 12, Because of Now Such Excessively Hard Persona, he ultimately denotes formal Tor, reiterated shadow, Animus Archetype, 2006 to 2009. Film 13, Essential Resolution of Charred Persona, 2009. Film 14, Transvaluating Imagination, The Double Goulet. Film 15, Notable Persona now infuses itself together with art, music. Films 16, 17, 18, and 19, Essential Temporality. Nothing is in store for me. I'm not going to change my ways. Film 20, Notable temporality, fallen generative potentiality, and essential remembrance. Film 21, temporality and impending final resolution. Films 22 and 23, ultimate anima archetype and lost. 2011 to 2012. Film 24, what's left of my brain. Film 25, the life and death of a Mr. Gillette. The life and death of a complete and total fool. With kind respect to Herder. John Tenek, who is Herder, simply put, final kaput, final, December 14, 2012. 12/16/2012. I'm very sorry. Please forgive me. I'm so very cold right now. I don't understand anything at all. My life, my thoughts, though I feel that I do so as only essentially. I was so very unclean. My lifelong curse was to clean myself up. I did not know my own Kopecki Walker mother. The female herself does not understand me. It is unspeakable. I did know my Kopecki father. He was hard and cruel, very empty. His effect on me, I think, was the thought of filth. I knew my Kopecki father. I loved my Kopecki father. My Kopecki father was his thought of filth. I loved the thought of filth. Every generation doesn't like abomination. He had cursed myself. My hard defensive persona had formulated. I was not wise, for how could I have been? I was far too young to absolve myself from my own mistakes. My anima archetype did not formulate itself essentially. Those original world circumstances, whatever they were, did not permit this to become done. My anima was filth. My anima had become ever the more filthy. I did love my anima archetype, certainly, though every generation does not like abomination. My curse was absolute fire, absolute strength, absolute muscularity. Of course, I did not identify with this. It was my accident. No man is forever excusable from material admonition, particularly so if it were very excessive. My very own anima archetype had disappeared so entirely, and by not even the beginning of my adolescence, I had lived alone with only my Nibelung father, with only my Kopecki Nibelung father. My own generative, perfect, absolute, infallible causation of negative pain, of closed touch, then unmentionable, unutterable, had actualized himself into my absolute sentence. Curse. The particular beast's persona was absolutely unbearable. You cleaned yourself up, Odin. Even the real home environment itself had become ever the more filthy. I was not learning from this, clearly. Those original world circumstances had led me entirely astray. Unbearably tormented even by then, I would move at first to the first purification water environment. I must remember this, so that to efficiently move myself again to a purification water environment at last. I had very little money, I had very little coin. You cannot earn coin, Odin. My absolute sentence was so very extreme that I could not make any money, coin, money. I could not be given money. Money itself was filth as well. I could not preserve this setting. Therefore, the absolute sentence, my Nibelung father and brother, moral messenger, was necessary for me to return to it. My appetite, my blood sugar, my strength, my universe was altogether beginning to severely deteriorate even by this point in time. Money was granted to me, and only necessarily by then, under the condition that it was to be severely meager and very minimal. I had needed to diet, to fast, and to purify myself of even an essentially severely modest amount of money, because it had been so wrong. I did move myself again to a cabin in the forest, this first essential step of mine to finally become clean. Idun was the first precursor of my salvation, that if ever I were to wish for coldness or for fire, she would be the initial commencement thoughts of what would later become ever the more strongly. You have come so far to redemption, Odin. Do not give this very moral task up. There was at this cabin archetype essentially nothing there, no friendship, no love, no relative, no life movement. All of it, I think, was relative to my first purgatory. Of course, there was no life movement. I needed it, though my absolute sentence was only again necessary to return to me. For more negative punishment, for more mortification, more closed touch. The fundamental messengers that were Alberish, that were my nibbling father and brother, were at this point in time severely fatal. The insanity was by now unreal. Insanity is because of being insanitary. The move to Crestline, the Garden of Eden, the Garden of Eden was completed. My own curse, of course, had followed me again into the form of curse. The fatal fire could not have become any more severe than what it was to be. His very fire severity, his perfect, infallible, negative causation, his completely closed touch, it was all so very severe that I had only one thought to focus myself on, to clean myself up completely, and at last. My room was by then completely meaningful. My computer, notably, and my television essentially were the north air, my final and complete anima. To the east was fire, the curse. The middle east was, of course, laboratory. It was the central meaning of the absolute sentence of my very life. It was, of course, the resolute reminder of my prior imaginative life abomination. The shower was there, to the west, in the bathroom, to clean myself up. You must purify the Middle East, Odin. Therefore, the cleanliness of the Middle East had occupied my complete attention. Any singular error, any singular mistake, any singular departure from my life sentence, that depth, essence, femininity were altogether to be a significant premonition of my ultimately very wrong understanding of love. Even Islam had tried to raise my sight to cleanliness so completely that I had nearly killed myself because of it. The resulted hatred, coldness, and emptiness, coupled along with unmentionable, unutterable, condemned, perfectly infallible negative causation, my intensity was to become so very severe, my heart so very cold and empty, that even the physical failure of my heart and my death was only to be completed, and this to be done very, very soon. My friendship, my love, my relationship, my life were altogether completely out of the question by that point in time. I must move myself on from this Garden of Eden place by now so very soon, otherwise the curse's eternal retentiveness is going to kill me completely. I was very lost, terrified, confused, and entirely sickened of myself by this point in time, and onward probably very prolonged. I don't know what else there is to love. This could have been written far better, though it is to be forever too difficult to understand myself. December 16, 2012. 2012. Essential requital. Okay, I could be better, much better, actually. My week is still rather beautiful, to be honest. Very beautiful weather. Well, at least I like the snow. My language is so deep, really. My life is so deep. It's so very austere. Did anybody find anything about me, anything sensible, salvageable? Life could be so scary. The video of me with the sword, that was quite a while ago. My swordsmanship practice, though I wish it were revived, is to be quite dead by now, unfortunately. How I wish it would come back. Well, how I wish my life would come back. I'm very scared and confused lately. Is tomorrow going to be my last day? I ask myself. 12/21/2012. And even if it were, at first, initially, I couldn't help feeling scared. But even so, later in the day, earlier yesterday, this very profound, deep acceptance and understanding was felt by me. I was not worrying anymore. I think tomorrow is the beginning of my true end. That the path to redemption truly opens by this point in time, personally and collectively too. But individually, so it is ultimately most profound. All that negative causation and negative resolution seems finally to be at its last end, at its point of no return, that there isn't any need to hold on to it any more. Hark the herald angels sing, and its theme of 2012, beginning at least most meaningfully tomorrow, probably. It is so strange, for I wonder, how could such a date have come to be so, supposedly meaningful, in the national, international mind? For almost all of my life, I personally did not feel that very date's truth having much physical authenticity. I'm doing nothing tonight, probably nothing tomorrow, neither. I'm snowed in still, probably. It's quite cold, actually, in the 30s, 40s throughout the day and night. It's warm inside, though. I'm still in California. I'm not practicing magic so much anymore, but the occult very much so still. It makes sense, really. I myself had always heard or sensed it wrong to study, at least too affirmatively, the occult of Crowley and of the Golden Dawn. Had I not indulged in it, I think I wouldn't have come to where I came to be after actually. This wrongfulness covers philosophy in general too. I should never have lost my faith, the praise of the Almighty, never to have doubted Him, or to have lost Him. It had happened over the course of my complete life, beginning most prominently during my very early adolescence. I was certainly rebellious, questioning, discerning of nature. I think that I was indigo. I mean that I am indigo, because of its very nature. I could not have known what mistakes I was committing, what effects and consequences that were to come. It's funny, I think that the Almighty thinks this life of mine is ultimately very funny, too. Doubt, uncertainty, unfaithfulness. He has his messengers, his angels, his watchers, and his record keepers, checking in always. That fallen angel, ultimately Satan or Shaitan, is there so clearly. He goes by many names, of course: evil, doubt, infidelity, Lilith, philosophy, magic, materialism. Lilith is clearly predicated as Satan, attributed to him. The fallen angels are merciless, relentless, so extremely tricky and deceptive. Ultimately, they are destroyed. They are overcome by the lover, the worshipper, the believer. Even the last is first. We all become wiser, little by little at a time. We are all saved in the end. I laugh at my own misadventures immensely. Mine are so very magnanimous, I can't help but laugh excessively when I think of them. Ha ha ha. Apparently, I went far further than Crowley. Crowley was fun to me. Aristotle, as far as unfaithful works are concerned, was as far as I would go. Beyond that, only myself had remained. Again, as far as infidelity was concerned. But yes, Aristotle, the greatest of all possible minds. A material body can effectively change itself to something more essential, more salvageable, particularly so were an individual to desire for it to do so as such, and to work with that material body to do so as such. Clearly not all the material bodies are empty operators of the Almighty. Ha ha ha. I do feel sociopathic sometimes. I should never ever think sociopathically or evilly, nor should anyone either. Humanity is centered on its own decisions, right between good and evil always. Evil is tempting, always possible to choose, though of course it is not ever wise or ever clean at all to do so. Sentiments of revenge, excessiveness, sociopathy can be very difficult to deny and to abstain from. I do hope that everything is alive. I do know for certain that I was alive, and that the Almighty is alive, and that the Almighty is alive, that each the two of us were and are clearly independent and adhere to freedom of the will, perhaps out in the real material world. At least I hope that such ideas, the human, even the animal, even so the plants, are alive, and that they are independent and freely willed, freely acting as well. I would say that I'm lucky to be alive here. I think that I'm right to feel lucky, fortunate, that my life here is really a good thing. This universe, this world, this threshold, this life is of course hijacked, overtaken. Entropy and evil is in it, but it must be forever denied. It must be turned away from, to be quieted, to be overcome. And to do this by good will, by good deeds, by sharing good deeds, by loving, praising, worshipping, glorifying, and imagining Allah, ultimately, for He does have a good resolution in store for humanity, His paradise, His gardens with the rivers of faith and the trees of good deeds. His believers ever ceaselessly progress in their salvation as well, in this paradise of His. I'm interested in the Almighty. He goes by many names as well. I myself have come to adhere to Islam, Sunni Islam. This religion is clearly going to be my saving grace, the right and perfect standard for me. I cannot and will not have it some other way. All else to me would lead me astray and is incomplete. Would I like Rumi? Maybe I would. Rumi is permissible to me. I will say my prayers. I'll be praying. I promise I will do so. Salvage, right of reclamation. A very simple prayer. I like it. I think that this can work for me. I trust that this can do so much. There's some activity involved in it. I still like it though. I like it enough that I'll try something like it and try to do it continuously, always. The cure for my heartache? I promise to do something like it, to at least begin to try it. My heart mustn't continue in the bad condition that it has been coming to, neither physically nor metaphysically. Yes, physically, I do feel that something is not right with my heart any more. At least I'm now much older. I feel so intense, so hard and cold, so very empty with very closed touch. Now I sense that my heart skips beats far too irregularly than it should. I am inactive as well, far too much altogether. I don't know. I think that if I were to die very soon, I think the primary cause to it would have been from the physical failure of the heart. It makes sense too metaphysically. The light in the heart, I must understand this. I must somehow begin to really love at least someone in order to practice my real love, to develop it, to prepare it for the love of truth, for the love of him. It must be real love in order to save myself. Perhaps a blue orb, a blue sphere of light. The light in the heart must be blue. At least I think its color must be imagined it as such to begin with it. I think that it is permissible to love the gold color too, the formerly so, the white. The head, the generation, the imagination, the causal system. At least I've come to sense that these very attributes correspond to whiteness. The crown, the almighty. It is true that there are two types of intelligences, the male formality and the female essentiality. I believe that the female essentiality is probably ultimately superior, that this is elemental water, the cardinal west. I like the female essentiality, though I'm ultimately male, that for feeling instead of words, I must use imagination instead of words. Of course, I know that rationality is irrationality, essentially and ultimately. Perhaps the heart is where the imagination ends, at least with true imagination is then granted the heart. I don't know if that is true enough, or at least whether that is permissible. It is clearly agreeable that it depends on what the imagination brings to the soul. The heart is essentially female. The imagination may decide to affirm the heart, or to affirm the Almighty, which the Almighty transcends even the imagination. With the heart imagined, the imagination descends into causation, temporality, resolution. With the Almighty imagined, the imagination ascends above the logic, above the categories, above all total sentience. To be honest, I truly believe that the ideas that I had written down above are essentially attributed to the Aristotelian system. I don't know this though. I may have lost my mind completely, having come across that, and then having come across my own system. Aristotle's De Anima, Aristotle's essential works in general. I haven't even significantly read any of them as of yet. I'm currently still in the Organon, in the hundreds and hundreds of pages of this extremely abstruse logical systematization. I long profoundly to at least be done with that, to finally move on to his more feeling and more or less heartfelt works. I do believe honestly, instead, actually, that the Greeks were on the right path, that they did have very good intentions, only that they were getting there, arriving to that, what would become found in non-idolatrous religion, in essential monotheism, and so forth. I'm not doing any of this for public schooling. Aristotle, I don't believe, was empiricist. Locke was empiricist, Berkeley and Hume. I turned away from them by now. I don't know, I think that I'm funny. It is very odd, at least I think the Almighty sees severely funny things in me. He reiterates them and guides me to find them. Then I'm not so heavily concerned with that negative sense that I'm on the right path to more essential happiness. That happiness helps work its way to all the wrong and evil deeds that he intends for me to ultimately overcome. The Mr. Goulet, the double Goulet, Adam, Atrick, Cowpecker, Phallic filth. Maybe no one understands any of this aspect of me. Earth Lover, another hidden surname of his for me. Adam Cadman, the original generative male, but the first is ultimately the worst, the last. The father is ultimately the daughter in the end. My life is clearly the father archetype. From here and after, I must be reiterated into the son, then maybe the mother, then the daughter. Perhaps my third reiteration will be the daughter, then the fourth and final reiteration will be the mother. If that latter premise is true, then the categories must be redistributed a little bit. The efficient cause is then to be the daughter of the third category. The final cause is then to be the mother of the fourth category. North, east, south, then west. Air, fire, earth, then water. It is very tricky. I don't wholly understand this system entirely either. I tended to have thought so very incessantly on the predicates of everything in reality, as of recently, attributing them to the four categories. This is not from Kabbalah, not Crowley neither. It is essentially found within Aristotle's writings, though I don't even know if he saw this very system here in his own thoughts. Then I inspired from here and there bits of Aristotelian logic. Then I had pulled together this assortment of all past knowledge that I had learned of, much of it stemming from the occult, and formulated this very own system of mine, that of which I think it is really in fact faithful to the nature, identity, and so forth of the Almighty's universe, causation, creation. Learn rightly, wisely, with faith and with soul in mind. I think that I, at least very recently, had been reunited, or at least was being reunited with that source of mine. I started thinking about someone myself, someone so extremely difficult to understand, complicated, completely identifiable, completely meaningful, though ultimately really unattainable. Never will there be another woman to me that had meant so many things so very profound and significant to me. I should have always stuck, and still should always stick or hold to the right true religious source, to try to do what is better or best within its own rights. For the better or best is clearly to be the religious or spiritual. I believe that Sagittarius corresponds to temperance on the major arcana. Sun and Mars are clearly attributed to fire, Sagittarius to fire, essentially. Jupiter to air, to the wheel of fortune, to father, but to blue, to mercy, thus female. Saturn and Pluto are clearly dark shadow planets, nothing much affirmative of them, I think. The 12th house is Hibiscus, violets, essentially love, loving, I think. Saturn and Pluto, darkness, and so forth, are now predominant over the 12th house, violets, essentially love, loving, and so forth. Peace and blessings. December 20, 2012. 12/24/2012 letters. Just to stop by briefly and touch on only the most vital ideas. For now, concerning the proposition that I'm sleeping quite a bit and relaxing as of late. Yes, it is very right that I have been doing so very much indeed lately. I'm tired even right now, after having slept rather excessively from earlier the day as well. December 1, 2012. I must apologize for having not written in a little while. It has been far too long before I should have done so in any way. Anyway, my back has been in pain today, quite badly to be very sincere, earlier to the point that I was feeling rather paralyzed, the pain being in the central part of me. It was very difficult to move. Even rest was still rather painful. However, I did rest for a few hours, and now feeling quite better for the time being, in fact. I was a little worried that I might have to see even a doctor, for the pain was so severe, though I had made certain to and did eat well and rest well, and sooner or later the pain, it seems, is readily subsiding, and I should probably be healed completely in a day or two. I'll take things simply in the meantime. It has been quite rainy here in my mountain town over the past several days. December 4, 2012. I'm here right now, but only for a short time. Only for a short while, as I must rest immediately afterward. I'm tired very much, and my back is still very sore. My energy is rather spent for now. For having put together this 25-minute recitation video from the ancient Egyptian pyramid texts, I really hope somebody or anybody will watch it. Otherwise, what a waste of reason it would be having it go unheard by essentially everybody of this world. A reason for the same for any of my work too, myself in general, honestly. December 5, 2012. I slept earlier, beginning since precisely noon of the 5th, on until more or less noon of the 6th. I don't know how I ended up doing this, but I know that it is a part of my character and my inherent identity to undergo the experience of this sort of excessive tiresomeness rather naturally, normally, and instinctively. I can only imagine the magnitude of my very tiredness in whatever years to come from now. I think, though, that here and now my back had simply called for this occasion as its primary reasoning. Anyway, I've been up since more or less 1 in the afternoon earlier today. It's 4 in the morning right now on the 7th. I had ended up and finally bought a printer of my own earlier this night, rather randomly. I've had it set up and it works appropriately. I've had a file which contains the entire vocal piano score to Wagner's Parsifal printed out on it. That is from the opening prelude in the third act only, simply for budgetary reasons. Also, for that the first and second act of this score is nearly impossible to play on the piano coherently, or without good faithfulness to the right imagined sound of the orchestra and singers. I'm going to head off to an office store in a few hours and have the pages of this printed score spiral bound, and then immediately after I will make my way to the college and practice a good run through of it. I've had this idea to print out all sorts of these online pages of sheet music from classical composers. Now that I have this printer, it is nearly free to do this. If only I hold for the printer ink cartridges. These are rather expensive, and they run dry rather quickly too, unfortunately. Soon enough I should have in my possession my own self-made books of composers' music, such as of Beethoven, Brahms, Chopin, Debussy, Fauré, Field, Grieg, Haydn, Liszt, Mozart, Schubert, Schumann, and so forth, these of which I resolve to practice of them rather frequently. For so long I've had deprived myself such a great quantity of classical composers, no longer will I do this to myself. I have thrown out all these vital books, such a great amount too, since a little over 6 years ago by now, it had never returned to them, or had gathered them back again to my proprietorial possession, though now I'm going to try and recomplete this at last. Over time, my piano music collection should contain a far more abundant and notable amounts. This is to be done rather inexpensively. I've had this idea even to browse around for a digital piano. It is to have a headphones capability. I can practice the piano at my place for hours more frequently and silently to the others too. The college university will be unnecessary to be utilized for piano instruments. After this acquisition for the home is made, I also believe that there is a store down the mountain that rents digital pianos for as low as $25 American per month, which is really affordable to me. Over the next month, I will begin shopping for a digital piano. If it is not found at that store, then I will try to find a digital piano online. I should have one at my place with plenty of good sheet music here available to go to and to practice it at essentially any hour of the day. It would not be necessary for me to drive my car a long distance, to spend excessive money for petrol fuel, for petroleum, for petrol, even for the $5 American single day parking permits each time, just in order to practice an hour or two of an array of rather bad pianos alongside a typically horrendously loud and obnoxious sanguinary societal environment with very little to no respect or knowledge or understanding of any genuine musician artist, apparently trying to play his music actually at the grandiose and superior level that he imagines it to potentially to be. Also, a digital piano, to have one, its sound is to be clearly different from that of an acoustic upright. In many cases, may sound even better in a recording. Therefore, here with the digital piano, the recording quality of my music will, or should very probably, be improved very much as well. Of course, I must look for the right one. The downtown piano store does seem like a very good contender. Anyway, the above written is merely my own little plan for the course of the next month or two to do. It does seem likely to successfully come about too. It seems all understandably affordable for me to do this. It should be such a change in environment for such a better one if and when a piano is finally acquired and put in its right place into my own room. I should always have a piano along by myself now. It is a strange kind of beloved of mine, historically speaking, that it has always been so for me. I was to have it at my own place. It is a fundamental attribute to my character and to my very identity. Well, my creative standard is far much greater now, verging on near absolute perfectionism. Ever since that miserable series of the 9-book recitations had been completed earlier this September, I believe that when it was done, this perfectionism applies to my music recordings too. That altogether is a clearly evident improvement in any artistic work or creation of mine too. This regards my writing as well. Well, anyway, I must head off to rest for an hour or two, then I should head down the mountain to practice some of Wagner's Parsifal, December 7, 2012. Since that Frigg is probably very irritable around others during the holiday season, and generally too, I understand this completely and relate with her totally, of course. like always, particularly here in the West, for this is the West, the ignoble, unwise, sacrilegious, material feeder, foolish, naive, matriarchal, irrecoverable, unsalvageable, corrupt and corrupted West. No adequate, worthy, sufficient, exemplary father patriarch is ever to be found here. In no four categories this idea corners direction. The Almighty is not ever to be found here. The state is forever losing itself. The house is overrun with unruly, unnecessary parasites. His brothers are bestial, savage, primitive. December 10, 2012. A certain final prophet's beloved companion was well beyond his years of age. He did not mind this. He had lost his parents when he was young. He essentially did not have any parents to guide him nor to nurture him. His wife was his most spiritual, most meaningful love of this world. It had meant everything to him. To find and to recreate these parents of his that he never knew. My life is at a severely cold standstill by this point in time. I do not clearly nor deeply know anyone, neither woman, nor friend, nor relative, actually in my life anymore, neither insignificantly, nor is there any potential probability for a future opportunity of my own to meet anyone else again. I do not wish to live at the Garden of Eden anymore. Of course this is known. Abomination despises me. Abomination Jinistan despises me and fears me. I despise abomination. I was so very radical in their eyes that no good thing ever remained in store for me. I won't compromise my ways for them ever, either. December 12, 2012. I must apologize once more. Unfortunately, my own house has had its heater problematic and knocked out for well over a week by now, I believe it has been. Even my own room's temperature has been decreased down to that of freezing, day in and day out. The heater is still problematic, not working for whatever curious reason, though I have been dressing myself far warmer, for I had been a fool over the prior few days. The mechanic had been up at the place twice, I believe, since the prior 2 days. It would be insensible for the heater not to remain broken and defunct by now, or at least very soon. I do feel myself warming up a little bit more and more lately once again, as I should be feeling so as such. I've been severely depressed as such over the prior few days, particularly so for having become so very unnecessarily and undesirably desperate and lonesome. What nonsense that was. I truly cannot be afraid of what it is likely to become, a very barren and very bleak reality that is almost indefinitely and certainly probably going to become of me later on in my life. I must toughen myself up and strengthen myself, even the more so than what I already have been doing so as such to myself, and necessarily with very severe responsibility over the past 6 or 7 years, in order to protect myself and safeguard the very physical and psychological health of my well-being, than which this both would otherwise deteriorate and destroy itself completely with much rapidity, and all too soon a tragedy it would all have been to become, having caused itself needlessly to occur. I just need to get outside more, to go out for a drive, to move, to get somewhere, to find something to do, to find somewhere, to find someone, a friend, a companion, a real true love, a right spouse, one that of which acts my own age, very old and wise, though the beloved herself must of course here be physically age-wise identifiable to me, one that of which is my intellect and is my own identity, that of which is fire and air, like Freyg's, who is Eve's. In the Old Testament, the Holy Bible, name, title, appellation, way, final kaput, and if it's film, final, like Freyg's, who is Eve's, truly, like Freyg's, who is Eve's, truly, though Eve's, who is Freyg's, truly, therefore Freyg's, who is Eve's, who's Freyg's, truly, though this very woman must of course be likewise attainable without a major conditional circumstance, like too unsymmetrical of an age, neither too long of a distance, there is to be none of that, neither no spouse of hers already to be at all, of course. This latter is of course to be elemental and fundamental to the right causation of what our companionship should and is to be. She must be just like I myself, though essentially as such, therefore the feminine anima archetype. I promise myself not to fall into desperation, never. I shall command and decree this to myself, of course, though I tell this to Frigg as a faithful reminder, simply so that she herself knows not to affect herself over me by not negative means, or by not a bad, or by not a bad, immoral, negative category. We are ourselves a strong love between each other, to be sure. For over time, this love between ourselves has developed and elaborated immeasurably by clearly understandable means. That this love between ourselves is, as she has meant to nourish it, by having meant this all along a maternal love, now known and having sensibly perceived this evident by myself on the other side of the spectrum as well, that this companionship is to be an essential love, though notably restricted and conditional. It is to be a circumstantial based love between one maternal, very imperial, beloved, though familial companion, and alongside this side I, one solar son, though forever would always strive driven to become the right patriarchal imperial father archetype myself that I should and am to become. This is to be done so alongside by the governments and guidance of her very own essence and understanding of me from her herself, that our companionship is of course by now known and confirmed by me and her both together to be quite some kind of very grand, powerful, and absolute means for ourselves, for I myself to overcome, to mature, and to at last purify myself completely from what, unfortunately, I prior experienced, therefore become, during my long ago and distance, the still very well-grounded and unshakable youth. This is to be overcome, to be matured, to at last be purified of myself from now on and afterward. Myself indeed to become what instead I should forever afterward rightly be, a wise, strong, healthy, and honorable husband, to pure, identifiable, believing, beloved, strongly developed, healthy, and very faithful spouse. But more on this topic later. I do have a great amount of self-recognition and self-consciousness to overcome, although of course this is the primary curse, a part of mine, the part of anyone just as alive and real as me. Anyone to overcome that and to transcend that, though both she and I, Frigg together alongside with her very young and loving friend, are perfectly, though warmly and friendly, very right and ready for ourselves to attain inevitably our own pure salvation, through means of which it is to be truly peculiar and distinct, though of course acceptable and permissible to do, as does apply to us here, and to us here and only. For in the meantime we are to serve as a means for myself, understandably quite selfish and one-sided means, though I assert it to be quite necessary to do so, at least to experience this so myself, to imagine, to satisfy, to grow, and to mature that strong marital urge within me, than which it is by now, as I am clearly and evidently at my physical prime, and significant time for marital communication by now, strongly and proudly rearing its very own head, that it desires and it needs its very urge to be fed, nourished, and satisfied with her, but with her herself, Frigg, for now, and only as a circumstantial and conditional means, as we both understand our distinct and peculiar contract as it is to be. December 17, 2012. Certainly she is that very rock that she mentions of to be as it is as such, which is as strong, determined, firm, and unshakable as she is that maternal companion of mine, to firm and to pursue our very meaningful undertaking, as always it seems that the very Almighty strives for the two of us to perfect a very loving and admirable idea between ourselves, and his doing this seems to be for very merciful and compassionate, but for a very important and significant reasoning as well. I wholly know that she herself understands my very loving desire for her, as well as my very strong desire to be loved. This here is to be by her, though her love is maternal, and I know that this is the term as it has to be in this life, and I understand this. I accept it and affirm it as such completely. She clearly understands this reality of mine too, and until I find this right, efficient woman for me, if and whatever this may be, she and I both know and accept and support this very distinct type of causality in order to fulfill and mend this very immense bleeding wound of mine, one that never should have occurred to me in the first place, one that I know it can be healed, though it must be healed, and it is to be healed, though along with this peculiar kind of conditional and restricted type of love between the two of us only, and this in particular for the time being, until that ultimately sensible and understandable reason comes about for the two of us to depart the peculiar contract, but of course to depart from the contract only. We are recognizably to be and to remain close, very warm and beloved, deeply sharing, deeply revealing, singularly notable and identifiable friends and confidants between ourselves, between the two of us, this clearly until the end. But for now it is as it has to be, and this is very evident and understandable to be. December 18, 2012. I'm very thankful, and finally, the condition of my home has begun to warm up once again. An engineer mechanic did show up at my cabin again, and soon afterward, during that hour, the heater finally turned on, and the house soon became warm again and understandably homely. Condemned has paid for the repair this time. For a house repair like this, apparently, he normally pays the cost of something like this. It has snowed here off and on over the course of this week, though my area not so much as of yet. Only yesterday has it been rather more abundant, but even still not so much. If ever that I do find the right sufficient woman for me in this lifetime of mine, I'm clearly going to remember this kind of austere quality about Frigg, and I should really seek to acquire this emulation of my real beloved. If ever I do find her in my lifetime, this austere quality should of course be inherent in her to begin with, and if I am to know that she is to be my right, real, and true beloved, I think I will find the right, real, true woman of mine in whatever amount of time it takes. I think that it can be done, and if and when it is done, then when she is found, I'll always remember Frigg and I as what we are and where we're at right now, and I promise myself to find and perceive those essentially very desirable and identifiable aspects in her, that of which I have found in her herself. Of course, our own correspondence remains continuous always, for the rest of our lives, but only my affection and more or less intimate, beloved devotion to her, are more or less intimate aspects of our companionship. This is, of course, but this attribute between ourselves only must turn itself, its attention, objectification, manifestation, etc., only from myself toward her, to that right, real, true, beloved companion of mine, if and whenever she is to be found by me, somewhere in the near or distant future of my particular lifetime. We both, Frigg and I, like I've said already, like I've said already, remain always loyal, very close, warm, and so very similar friends and confidants, and I swear this so until the end of our lives. If I do live again, which I think I will, then I am certain that, in the next life, I'll strive for her, to find her, to find yet again those very fine, rare and distinct aspects and characteristic attributes of her own character already found. Even my will in its future form and generation still wills for Frigg. Of course, I think that this future life formality of mine will not ever be superior in quality and severity as to what the former life formality particularly had once come to be understood, known, and experienced, although the following posterior life formality, my third formation, should probably be clearly superior to my second one. The fourth formality should be inferior to them all. And then afterward, I believe nothing, or probably the momentary rest from life affliction. Then the 4 lives begin again, and this in some other reiteration for the prior life experiences. Probably so, I think. The Almighty does not like stagnation. I think I'm alone, only capable of independent free will in this world. And this world is like a game of chess between myself and the Almighty, and I'm going to lose this tournament in the end, of course, and right now I have a king in check. My queen is rather threatened, my rook is only 1, and it too is rather threatened. My bishops are gone, my knight, it is 1, it is rather threatened as well, and but only 1 or 2 pawns remain. Haha, though more on this later. December 19, 2012. I'm doing rather better. My day today has been somewhat good. Really quiet around here, thankfully. The snow outside has melted considerably. I'm going to try for a drive sometime a little later, finally, to see some real life movements. My word, I'm so sad and desperately wishful for real friendship. I may even schedule a doctor appointment. That is, to see a counselor, simply to get an opportunity to speak to someone in person, at least again. I really didn't think that the world would end today, or that I would die today. I think that its suggestion was put together more significantly as a simple, the powerful life lesson, moral reminder. For me, whatever others to understand the reality of what it would be like were one to know that death was imminent within a few short days of time. Though more on this subject matter later as well. December 21, 2012. I must need to be not only a Spartan man myself, but of a severely stone-cold Teuton, solid and unbreakable from any negative sentiment whatsoever, but not because of forfeiting herself or for any of her own normative business as of late. It must be because of my very heavenly sent consequence unto myself, unto my lifelong sacrilegiousness, terrible, atrocious, and so very negative the consequences have to be. These consequences the cause of this terrible loneliness of mine. This in a rather general sense. I despise the lateness of persons, particularly so if it were understandably inexcusable. I have seen quite so many people over my years that would act this way repetitively and habitually. It has me feel quite irritable to them, especially so where they finally just arrived. On a little side note, the contents of my book, The Birth of the Fool 2, are now immensely updated, finally finished and put online in the complete enough book form that I intended to be, with the chapter titles and each chapter posted in its correct consecutive order. There is my first book online too, The Birth of the Fool 1. Its contents as well are in a similar order and arrangement as is the second book site mentioned above. There's a third book just begun, The Death of the Fool 1. Its contents have, I think, 6 entries posted already in the meantime. Sadly and unfortunately, and I'm certain of it, I won't be seeing my Nibelung father this Christmas time, neither any of my remaining Kopecky Nibelung family. I've been wished a Merry Christmas by one singular person so far, and this is from another online internet friend. I'll probably write to my Kopecky Nibelung father an email message prior to the 25th. Indeed, how so very important my beloved Frigg is to me, right now and at this point in my life. My word, I know it is unnecessary to reassure myself, for she and I already know just how loyal and faithful a close friend and companion she is and always will be to me, and I, of course, to her, with the gratefulness and praiseworthiness I have inside myself for her. She is so clearly an honorary and well-deserving and successful heroine by now, at this point in our lives, on the one hand, concerning everything that she has done so far in her own life, and on the other hand, concerning both the two of us together, in our own peculiar struggles and efficient enough and very graceful attempts at resurrection out of an otherwise very bleak solitude of mind, and so forth. She is my firm and right honorable matriarch. I am her elemental and fundamental right honorable solar generation, risen, striven to generate my own absolute religious and imperial patriarchy. December 22, 2012.